Hello folks, Pipeman 1861 here. Well, I hope that you all have had a wonderful week so far. I know I have. Tonight I am smoking. I haven't smoked this pipe in quite a long while. It's my K Woody Large Dublin, shape number 13, K Woody Standard, with the small 4-ball stinger, probably from the mid to 50s to mid 60s, I'd say. And I'm smoking Carter Hall, because why not? Makes you want to slap your mama. Anyway, it's good stuff. So tonight, I thought I'd do something a little bit different. Several months ago on the channel, I showed you all an antique door closer that I had taken off of an old building, a door in an old church. And throughout my locksmithing, I have always kept my eyes open for some unusual old hardware that is being taken off doors and will end up thrown away if I don't take it. So I've amassed quite the collection. And I would like to show you just a couple things that maybe you may have seen them on doors. Not very likely, because some of this stuff's getting hard to find. But it's funny. Whenever you never notice any particular thing unless you are in the line of business that services or sells them. Like, for example, if you never pay any attention to air conditioning units, but if you're in the AC business, you instantly notice the air conditioners wherever you go. That's what you focus on. Well, that's how I am. Whenever I go anywhere, I always, before I walk in the store, I automatically look down at the lock cylinder to see what keyway it is. And I always think, I bet I can pick that. It's funny. And so I pay attention to door hardware. As I notice if a door closer is not adjusted right. I notice if a door is slamming. Slamming doors drive me crazy. I notice if the lock is loose. I immediately reach for a screwdriver to try to fix it, and I realize I'm not on the clock and I don't need to be doing that. So it's funny. Well, first thing I'm going to show you. This is an antique electric door strike. Otherwise known, years ago when this was new, they called these electric door openers. This would be mounted mortised into the door frame. And when the door closed, this little pocket here is where the latch, or the latch would go into, and it would be held closed. Well, pop the cover off of here. There we go. Inside, just a couple of electromagnets, and there's your two screw contacts for your wires. This, I think, would run on about 12 to 18 volts direct current, or alternating current, depending. Whenever current was applied, the magnet would go pull that back, and this here whenever the magnet activated, this could be pulled back. See, it's locked in place there, pulled back there. And so the door would just pull open even if the lock was locked. They use these a lot in apartment buildings on the front door to buzz you in. If these were hooked up to alternating current, whenever the person upstairs would push the button to let you in, it would make a buzzing sound because of the alternating current. So that's where buzzing you in came from. This company, Edwards, actually was the first one to make electric door openers. About 1886, if I remember right, the first one was patented. So I thought that was interesting. They started out as a burglar alarm company in 1872, and then they started doing the electric strikes. Amazing to me that those things existed back then, but they did. Okay, so there's only a couple other things I want to show you. This is kind of a rare piece of hardware. This, and it's seen better days. The finish is kind of worn on it. This is a Corbin unit lock. It was made by the Corbin P&F Corbin Company in Connecticut. It has knobs on both sides. It has key cylinders on both sides. It has a latch and it has a little deadbolt. These here, they started making these, I think, in the late 1880s, early 1890s. This was the answer because years ago, we have it real easy nowadays with installing locks. Most locks. Like say you want a Schlage deadbolt and doorknob on your front door. All you have to do is drill a 1 1/8 or 2 1/8 inch hole through the door, and then with the proper spacing from the door edge. And then you drill a 1 inch hole through the door edge into the dead center of that 2 1/8 inch hole, and then you have to do some cutting out for the bolt. But the lock will just fall right in there and it'll work perfect if you do it right. Well, years ago, there were the two common types of locks were called rim locks and mortise locks. Rim locks, the lock case was mounted on the surface of the door on the inside, and then the key would go through the door. You had to have a big long key to get through the door. And depending on how they were mounted to the door, it was fairly easy to kick the door in because you were able to, if you kicked hard enough, you could rip the lock off out of the surface of the door, rip the screws or the brads or whatever you used to fasten it in place. And then there was the mortise lock, and they're still popular, particularly in expensive homes and commercial installations. The mortise lock, this is one right here. This is an old J.B. Schroeder mortise lock, but the mortise case, there was a hole cut in the edge of the door called the mortise, and this lock would slide into the door and be held in place there and there. This was much stronger because you had to split out the whole side of the door to get this lock to break out of there. And with the good quality wood they used to use, that was about impossible. But that was very labor intensive to take your brace and bit, drill several holes in a row perfectly straight, then take your chisel, cut out the mortise just at the right depth to put the lock in. Well, Corbin came out with the unit lock. The way they designed it, this inside knob would come off, and this plate here would come off. Didn't have to, but it would. All you had to do to install this lock was cut a square piece out of the edge of the door. Cut a straight line in, a straight line in, a line in, and then a line down, and remove that square block from the edge. And this would just slide over the edge of the door, chunk, and then you'd put your screws there, and there. So these plates would act like a mortise. It acted like a mortise lock. It was strong as a mortise lock, and it was very quick and easy to install compared to a mortise lock. And the knobs are always unlocked, and then you would lock the deadbolt with either one of the keyholes. And Corbin is still around, and they will still make their modern version of this lock for you. It's a special order item, and it'll run you about $950 because nobody uses them anymore. But I'm thankful I have one of the original old ones. And last but not least, if you live in the Cincinnati area, and if you pay attention in older buildings, you might see this is a mortise cylinder. Okay, it has threads on it, and it normally has a cam on the back here. And this threads into a mortise lock. Mortise locks are nice because you can take one cylinder out and put another one in as you wish. But there was a company, same as this one I mentioned it a minute ago, Schroeder and Company. They were one of the oldest lock manufacturers in the city of Cincinnati, Ohio. Started in 1842, I think. And they provided locks. They were early on. They concentrated mostly on bank locks and locks for jails, insane asylums. So high security stuff. And then they mostly stuck with commercial hardware, but they did make residential hardware. I've seen quite a bit of it. I fixed quite a bit of it in my job, but most of the time whenever I go to work on an antique mortise lock, which there are a lot of them still in service because they were good locks, they never wear out really, as long as you take care of them. Most of the time the cylinders have been replaced over the years because they didn't want the original old Schroeder keys. Schroeder had their own key system, and most of them you cannot get anymore. So one of my co-workers went on a job, and the guy had a J.B. Schroeder mortise lock on his front door, and he wanted them to change out the cylinders to accept a Schlage key to match the rest of his newer locks. So he did, which is fine. It doesn't hurt the value of the lock any. Well, he gave me this. There's two cylinders, a short and a long one. This is one of them. And this is from the 20s. You can tell a really old mortise cylinder because the body of it will be cast, and it'll be kind of hollow there and there, and you can tell it'll be cast brass. The newer ones were machined. You can see on the face of it, I don't know, Schroeder. And another thing that I like about Schroeder is, in at least I think the 50s, maybe 60s, Charles Woods of the Acme Lock Company bought Schroeder, which became Cincinnati Schroeder. And they, according to Steve Woods, who works for Acme, and I've had many very enjoyable conversations with, they ran it up until 90s, early 2000s, it sounds like, mostly with cylinders. And this is one of the few remaining Schroeder keys. This is the D key, Schroeder D keyway. There was Schroeder A, B, C, and D were the four main keyways, and then there was double A, double B, double C, and double D, and those were the high security keyways, the restricted keyways that you had to have written permission to get the keys duplicated for banks and whatnot, But so that was kind of a neat thing. I have not yet made a key for it or cut a key that works it. I'm going to do that just for the fun of it one of these But that is what those are some of the fun things I've gotten, and I have other things too, but I figure that's enough for one video. It's been talking for 15 minutes about a topic that most of you all don't really care about, so I apologize, but I figured something different than just me smoking and talking about nothing in particular would be fun for a change. But anyway, folks, I'm going to let you go. I thank you so much for watching. This is Pipe Man 1861 saying goodbye, good luck. May the good Lord take a liking to you. I'll see you all again very soon, and as always, happy smoking. Thank you, folks. Bye now.